If you're on medication, treating depression, continue with your medication. This is a journey that requires a lot of sobriety. Having said that, I'd like to challenge some of your paradigms tonight in a way perhaps you did not expect. The reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people believe depression is like any other disease, just like malaria or typhoid. I beg to differ and boldly suggest this is an idea propagated by the mammoth pharmaceutical industry and some medical doctors, especially in a certain professional field. First, where is the mind? Because if the mind was physical, like the blood system or your heart, or like your brain, and secondly, if depression was caused by pathogens, and there are 5 categories of pathogens, viruses, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and worms, then I'll never write or speak on this subject prescriptively. But the real question remains, where is the mind, or what is the mind? We may even need to interrogate at what point did we surrender such a delicate societal concern to medical practitioners alone. That a craft has been done and practiced over the years by professionals doesn't justify it or even its continuity. Dr. Lydia Kahn and Nate Patterson in their book Quackery, The Worst Ways of Curing Everything, they describe in minute details how medieval doctors would press a sacrificed puppy or kitten or lamb or rabbit on a cancerous tumor, believing the cancer was like a ravenous wolf which would prefer to feed on the sacrificed animal than on the human patient. In that particular book, they have described various bizarre treatments that doctors used to use that have now been busted. And they used to believe they're legit, but they are overtaken by time. And challenging conventions is not just in the medical field, but it's across board. For instance, for centuries, we believe that the earth is flat and it's at the center of the earth. Scientists who suggested that the earth is spherical and is not necessarily at the center of the earth, people like Galileo Galilei, were castigated in public, at times even arrested by then custodians of knowledge, purporting that these are people who are spreading and propagating heretical teachings. You see, you don't see the world as it is. You see the world as your instruments allow you. Galileo Galilei's worldview was premised on superior instruments. In 1609, he had developed his telescope that gave him a magnification of 9 times. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as your lenses can permit you, as your lenses can allow you. And tonight I want to invite you to do away with the inferior lenses and climb to a higher ground where you can begin to see from superior mental magnification. Because while we get uncomfortable with new information, new behavior can only come from new thinking. And why I like quoting the law of gravity, it is perhaps the most known law in the universe. It's a reality we cannot deny. But the reason planes are able to get airborne is because there's a superior law, the law of aerodynamics. If you do not appreciate the law of aerodynamics, you'll always be grounded by gravity. When you don't recognize higher principles, you'll be a subject of inferior laws. As often said, knowledge is power. And you know the enemy controls you to the degree of your ignorance. So I want to suggest at this early stage of this momentous presentation, never take any advice as gospel truth, not even what I'm teaching you tonight. You are a thinking being. Interrogate what you hear. Ponder over it. Research over it. But don't disregard someone before you give them a hearing. The highest form of ignorance is disagreeing something that you do not fully understand. Don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Do not allow anyone to interfere with your quest, your search for the truth. When you hear new information, process it. Listen to it keenly against timeless truths. If it challenges your norms and your conventions, then change your behavior. I'm saying this because while many doctors have good intentions, there are few. There are some in their midst who've turned this noble calling into a business that knows no bounds. Make no mistake, medical science is not on trial tonight. The point I'm driving home is this. Depression is not a prerogative of the few, chosen few in the society to disalienate the rest of us from dealing this subject. We must speak about depression in our churches, in our homes, in our places of work. And by the way, this beautiful morning, I had a joint session for Liberty Insurance Company and Heritage Insurance Company of all staff members, including their two MDs, speaking about depression just this morning. And I encourage every single company to deal with this subject. Why is that? Why should we talk and learn about depression? First, you can live with someone who is depressed and you're not aware. No matter how transparent someone may be, they haven't told you everything. No matter how open someone may seem, they haven't disclosed everything to you. And you can be so close to someone and they still don't share with you what they're feeling. This need not be your fault. They were conditioned long ago to stuff up everything to themselves, to deal with their inner struggles and feelings, because when they were growing up, someone mistrusted them. They shared their insecurities and feelings, and they were not trusted. And Beatrice here in August talked about that age in life where we lose trust. So they have learned over the years not to share their worries, their concerns, their fears with anyone, because after all, who believes them? We belittle what they're going through. But second and more important, we need to learn about depression for our own good. You cannot get others out of the pit where you live. The first step towards conquering any enemy is identifying the enemy. Your enemy is not your spouse. Your enemy is not your boss. Your enemy is not the banker and the auctioneer who is selling your house. Your enemy is not even a terminal sickness. Your enemy is not your ex. Your enemy is not your past. Your enemy is not a child who calls you names. Your enemy is not that child who has ignored to support you. And the challenge is this. You can be depressed ignorantly without realizing. You can even reach the top of your career and still be depressed. Elijah the Tishbite, at the very peak of his career, after slaying 450 prophets of Baal, 450 prophets of Jezebel, a messenger was sent by Jezebel. And she swore by her gods, by tomorrow evening, Elijah will not be alive. And the man flew for his life. I thought Elijah should have known. He destroyed Jezebel's spiritual support. I thought Elijah should have known that God had already judged Jezebel. After such a demonstration of God's power, he caused rain. He led the largest revival in his generation. He was running away from this woman. And by the way, if you check the Bible closely, that was the end of his career. He took a journey, 40 days in the wilderness, and God told him to anoint his successor, Elisha. He gave up the fight and began to pray, take my life. I can't handle it any longer. After the triumphant exit from Egypt, the greatest manifestation of God's power through mere mortal hands, Moses was confronted by approximately 2.4 million people in the wilderness demanding for food. And he said, I've had it enough. This is after a great victory over Pharaoh and Egypt. I've had enough. Take my life. I can't handle the misery any longer. After God giving a testimony about Job, the most righteous man on the face of the earth, the richest man in the East, equivalent to Jack Ma today. Job, after losing his children, after his wealth and health failed him, the wife disowned him. He rued the day he was born and wished he was a stillbirth. In plain language, wished he was never born. We see the same with Jonah the prophet and Jeremiah telling God to kill me. But maybe as you listen to me, you're saying, Doc, those are medieval stories. I can't relate with that. Can you get more relevant? Hold your peace. I'm coming there. How would you behave if you lost the love of your life? Then you remarry and you end up marrying a nutcase who abuses you day and night. You lose your 2 sons. You lose 8 elections. And after finally you get elected to the highest office in the land, the country is torn by civil war. After 4 grueling years of trying to keep the country intact, fighting with a coup d'etat, after restoring the peace of a nation, they finally assassinate you. Yes, I understand. why Abraham Lincoln throughout his life suffered clinical depression. In World War II, the fall of Europe was imminent. The entire Europe looked up to Britain for their salvation. What a shame. The Prime Minister of Britain, Neville Chamberlain, resigned. And Winston Churchill decided to take on the challenge head-on. Most historians agree with me tonight. He almost single-handedly saved Christian civilization and the world. What a great man. You know, America and Russia came at the tail end of the war. But for such a great hero, larger than life, hear what he says. Hear what Churchill says. Depression follows me like a black dog. You know, you can make the money and still be depressed. You see, money is not a resultant of inner tranquility, harmony between your mind, soul, and heart. Money is a resultant of solving people's problems consistently, persistently, with focus, determination, and hard work, even by entrepreneurs who are hurting on their inside. A 48 beautiful lady went to a psychiatrist. She was fighting depression. Told the psychiatrist her problems, and the psychiatrist said, before I prescribe any other treatment, I've got some good news for you. Tonight, in this beautiful city, Whitney Houston is performing. I suggest go for her performance first, and then come back, and then we pick it up from there. The young lady looked at the psychiatrist and said, but doc, I am Whitney Houston. I'm sorry I created the story. But the point is this: 2 days after she committed suicide 2 days before her performance. Last year, 17th of November 2017, UK Minister of Children and Communities, Carl Sargent, some of you might remember, committed suicide. He hanged himself after his Labour Party decided to excommunicate him on allegations of sexual misconduct. The list is endless for celebrities, billionaires, heads of states and government who've committed suicide. In fact, people, great men who conquered the world but could not conquer their own fears, like Adolf Hitler. In fact, in the last 100 years, 31 heads of state and government took away their lives, and tonight, I want to show you 6 of them. Are you ready? Just in the last 100 years. I would have shown you pictures of celebs and other people, but these are people who had the money, they had the power, they had everything you'd look for in life. Roh Moon-hyun, South Korea, 2009. Milan Babic, Sabian Krajina, 2006. I bet you are all born. Carlos Roberto Reina, Honduras, 2003. Di Pedro, Nepal, 2001. Lezala Soli, Palau, 1988. The last one I'll show you tonight, Antonio Guzman Fanadi, Dominican Republic, 1980. Anyone can give up. I want to check on you, so I'm going to give you an exercise for 3 minutes. I have some 10 items, and I request each one of you to do this assignment. This is the deal. For example, item number 1. I have little interest or pleasure in doing things. It takes great effort for me to do simple things. I want you to rate whether it's a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. If you honestly think that doesn't describe you, rate it as a 1, not at all. Now, if you rated yourself 1, 1, 1, 1 in all these items, the total is 10. Please give yourself a total. If you rated yourself at 10, you have no depression at all, you might as well join me as a trainer. If you rated yourself 11 to 19, you have mild depression. If you rated yourself 20 to 29, you are depressed. If you rated yourself 30 and above, you might not be in this hall. You need to rush to hospital. You have severe depression. Now, it's natural to be stressed and sad and angry. And to deny these emotions is to deny our humanity. We are created in the image of God, and part of that means God has emotions and we too have emotions. But if you sustain anger and sadness, loss of interest for weeks, then we are dealing with a disorder known as depression. It's a mental disorder. And that's the business I want to transfer tonight, because stress graduates into depression. Stress is normal. Stress is a normal emotion. Depression is a mental disorder. Unchecked, 66% of all suicides are caused by depression. So I'll teach you 4 things today. I have some 4 lessons to engage you tonight. The first one is the signs and effects of depression. helping a depressed loved one, the root causes of depression, and finally, dealing depression, or what you may call curing depression. The very first lesson, signs and effects. And the reason I'm combining them is because these are catch-22. Most signs of depression are also the effects of depression. The very first one right there, I'm writing about physical symptoms, like consistent migraines, lower back pains, stomach aches. Number 2, social withdrawal. People who used to be outgoing, they don't want to relate with others. You want to retreat to your own cocoon. You feel more comfortable when you're by yourself. Number 3, feelings of inadequacy, like you don't measure up. You fight others like they are far better than you are. You are not the type that should be promoted or that should win in business. You are not the type to have a stable relationship. Number 4, irritability. If you fight someone in your house, they come after work and they start throwing plates at your child. They are not disciplining the child. The fellow has a problem. He has crossed the boundary of discipline. If somebody is always screaming at you, you become a scapegoat of his depression. See, when people are unable to deal with their own inner struggles, they project their woes to those around them. Number 5, loss of interest to things you used to like. People who used to be outgoing, they suddenly withdraw. You used to like nature or even visiting the jungle, and you pull back. Erratic sleep habits, and this can be either insomnia or hypersomnia. Insomnia is the lack of sleep. Hypersomnia is oversleeping. Of course, everything in life has some advantages and disadvantages, and because you're too serious, I'll give you one advantage of depression right now. One advantage of depression is that you don't ever need to make your bed because you're always in the bed. Now, fatigue, unusual tiredness. If you wake up tired in the morning, in the evening you wish it was in the morning. In the morning you wish it was in the evening. You are a candidate that needs specialized treatment. Difficulty thinking clearly, incoherent speeches, inability to make decisions, extreme fear of minor risks, because you tend to think anything you start's gonna fail. Loss or increased appetite. Notice it can go either way. Either you've lost appetite or increased appetite. How do you know? You have drastic weight changes. Either you have increased weight dramatically or lost weight drastically. Then there is an issue. Constant pessimism, loss of hope. You are always seeing things going haywire. For example, for sure, there are some few issues we need to fix as a country. Corruption has reached a level we have not witnessed in the last 15 years. But if you have lost so much hope, as though you are the only Kenyan affected by corruption, there is no single hope in you of doing anything. You are now waiting to see the collapse of this government. Then you're depressed. Use of stimulants and depressants, and sometimes we confuse the two. Stimulants sometimes are called uppers. These are things that excite your central nervous system, like crack and cocaine. Even energy drinks like coffee and nicotine. I should not talk about coffee myself. The pleasants, on the other hand, are downers, like morphine and heroin and alcohol, things that bring down the central nervous system, that makes you dizzy, sleepy. Number 12, recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. And this is the most serious. And I think at this point, let me first pause and say this. Don't give up on the fight. Every hero of faith went through the same life you are going through. We might not be wearing labels on our faces of what we are going through, but each one of us has items in our hands that we are dealing with. Suicide is a permanent choice premised on temporal problems. No matter how strong the emotions may be, no emotion will last. Emotions are like the waves of the sea. They rise and fall. You are never designed to solve all your problems by yourself. You are wired for relationships. All of us are like islands in the sea, separate on the surface but connected in the deep. Isolation, as I've said many times, leads to termination. The enemy of our soul is a master divider. He's a master isolator. Isolation minimizes imagination. It limits imagination. When we are together, we are able to solve some of the problems we are finding myriad just by the mere idea of reaching out to someone else. So I repeat again, you are never meant to solve all your problems by yourself. If you ever feel you've reached that point, just share with someone even if they can't help you. Maybe what is stressing you is finances and you know this character has no money, but just speak with them. The mere fact that you've spoken with them, they might even point you to some plots you forgot long ago. Throughout my career, I've tried to challenge a lot of conventions. And this is totally beside the point and has nothing to do with what we are talking about today. But I decided I'm going to transact some little business here because when I was growing up, I heard people saying, if you commit suicide, you just procured your ticket to hell. And I don't know whether there will be any other topic, any other opportunity for me just to deal with that lie that has been passed on from generation to generation. And the thoughts I'm going to give you are not my thoughts, they are biblical thoughts. There seems to me to be a transcendental difference in time between the time you're clinically dead and your eternal destiny. Let me first make a disclaimer. When you die, you either go to heaven or hell from a biblical perspective. Any other teaching is a lie. I didn't discover that. Jesus said, there was this rich man who ignored the poor man called Lazarus, and both died. One is in hell, and Lazarus is in heaven. To the extent Jesus even gives names of people. He's at Abraham's bosom. Anything else is a lie. You either go to heaven or hell. Of course, both of them will be finished at the end of time. And what will be the new hell will be the lake of fire. Here's the deal. Now, suicide is murder. Murderers will go to hell. Revelation 21:8. Let's go slowly here. Suicide is murder, itself murder. Let's make it very clear. But immediately you die, I've seen a lot of scriptures, I'll try to draw two of them, that seem to suggest the mercies of God knows no bound. For instance, when they were stoning Stephen to death in Acts 8, the story begins in chapter 7, we see Stephen able to see Christ, studying, beckoning him, coming for him. And he was able to say, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. The man is clinically dead, so to speak. He's technically dead. He has been stoned beyond speaking, but he's still able to make that choice. I'm going to Christ. But perhaps the most interesting story are the two thieves who are crucified with Christ on the cross. The writers of the gospel were able to say what these guys said, but believe me, they never heard them. One, these guys were beaten to death. Two, they were raised on the tree, very high. They couldn't even hear them, even if they murmured with their lips. Number three, the people who wrote these scriptures had run away, all of them. So there's no way they heard them. So I want to believe they never even opened their mouth. Maybe they were speaking their heart, and one chose hell, and one chose Jesus. Seems like the God of the universe still gives people an opportunity to make an eternal decision. Here's the deal from a biblical perspective. Jesus died for all sins, including suicide. That's why he wants us, do not judge. It is not your responsibility to determine where somebody's eternal destiny will be. In any case, who gave you the assignment of judging other people's lives? Eternity. You have to deal with your own salvation. Scripture says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Who gave you the assignment to determine where people went? I'm saying this because I had a preacher speak such words when the president was there, that they normally decide who has gone to heaven and who has gone to hell. Do you remember that? I was shocked, very shocked. Nobody knows. The answer is this: nobody knows. Only God knows. Even at that particular moment. The thing is this: your current sins were once in the future. Jesus died for your past sins and your future sins, including suicide. Caution: I wouldn't want to meet the God of all the earth immediately after committing murder. If anyone tells you they want to commit suicide, take it very seriously. And I'll be explaining to you why. You know, in the US in particular, I dug the best I could in all the documents I could. I couldn't get reliable statistics on this part of the world. I would have preferred to give you Kenyan statistics. But from the US statistics, the number of suicide cases are twice the number of homicide cases. And the most notorious black spot of suicide is the Golden Gate Bridge at the San Francisco Bay. I deliberately chose to walk through this bay just to observe these emotional aiders who tried to rescue these people along the 2.7 kilometer suspended bridge. And they just observe you. If you're there on tourism ground, like I was doing with Mercy and my two children, they don't bother you. But if they realize you're trying to weigh options between the bridge and 67 meter deep, the Pacific Sea. And by the way, guys fall there at 75 miles an hour, and before they hit the ground, the impact already has shattered their bones. So they just patrol the bridge. You may never notice them if you're just touring. But if you're making a decision between this divide and the next, they come very quickly and begin to reason with you. And they have had over 75% success rate. So I want to suggest this. Go beyond the mask of the individuals around you and truly find out how they are doing. There are a lot of men and women who wear emotional masks, who raise huge walls to block you from coming to the inside. And especially if they are doing well in their career lives, they will put a huge emotional block, barrier, so that you don't come near them. They are hurting, and they don't want to allow anyone near them. So how exactly can we help these people? I want to give you some 5 things that you can do to help your loved ones, and 5 things that you can do. But before doing that, let me just show you a few cases of suicidal notes, 10 suicidal notes, just to let you know depression leads to suicide. Let's look at these cases together, guys who took away their lives. Virginia Woolf, I feel certain that I'm going mad again. I feel we can't go through another of those terrible times, and I shan't recover this time. I begin to hear voices. Which voices was he hearing? Wendy Williams, I don't believe that people should take their own lives without deep and thoughtful reflection over a considerable period of time. Charlotte Perkins Gilman, when all usefulness is over, when one is assured of an unavoidable and imminent death, it is the simplest of human rights to choose a quick and easy death in place of a slow and horrible one. Rachel Litzy, they tried to get me, I got them first. Can we say it in Kiswahili? Walijaribu kunishika. Tony Hankon, things just seem to go too wrong too many times. Freddie Prince, I must edit. There is no hope left. I'll be at peace. No one had anything to do with this. My decision totally. At least he took responsibility. George Seders, dear world, I'm leaving you because I'm bored. I have lived long enough. I'm leaving you with your worries in their sweet cesspools. Good luck. James Whale, the future is just old age and illness and pain. I'll have peace, and this is the only way. The last guy I found interesting, he didn't want to live beyond age 67. It's good when you know your limit, when your time is up. Hunter Thompson, no more games, no more bombs. No more walking, no more fun, no more swimming. 67. That is 17 years past 50. 17 more than I needed or wanted. Boring, no fun for anybody. 67. You are getting greedy. Act your old age. Relax. This won't hurt. Let's get out of these things. These can be depressing. I want to give you some 5 things to do to help a loved one who is fighting depression. And 5 things not to do. Let's start with what not to do. 1, don't judge or criticize. A lot of us have been very careless with our family members when we realize they are stressed or depressed. We regard them weak, not realizing this is insensitive. Depression is not a personality flaw or personal weakness. It's a serious disorder. Secondly, avoid the tough love approach. There are people, especially parents, when they learn that a teenager is depressed, they give them warnings. If you behave like this, I'm going to get you out of this school. Husbands who tell wives, or wives who tell husbands, if you don't change in the next 3 months, I'm going to walk out on you. Business partners who give each other threats and ultimatums. And this doesn't help. It just makes the depressed person isolate all the more. Don't belittle their pain. Like telling them, you like making a big thing out of nothing. You blow things out of proportion. Are you the only one going through it? Don't we all have problems? What's the big deal? Learn to look at the bright side of life. Another one. This is a very high temptation. We like advising people who are depressed, not realizing it's counterproductive. Every time you advise an adult, it is not tenable, it's not sustainable. But when you ask them critical questions, for instance, how can I help you go through this? Then they own up the solutions. They follow through their suggestions. Number 5, avoid making comparison. For example, when I lost my job, I didn't behave the way you're behaving. I started a business very fast. Why are you mooning for 2 weeks about your mother? I lost my mom and I continued working. Who told you? Your mom is not his mom. My relationship with my mother is not your relationship with your mother. The impact is different. But what's wrong with you? You have just broken a relationship. Do you know how many have broken? In any case, that's why you don't hurt. You keep on breaking them. And you don't take any seriously. Some of us take our relationships seriously. And that's why we hurt. Don't try to compare someone's experience with your experience. No two people have a similar experience. No two deaths are similar. No two broken relationships are similar. No two job losses are similar. We all have very personal journeys. Let me propose some 5 things you can do. Be there for them. Walk with them. Journey with them. Let them cry on your shoulder. Wordlessly walk with them. What does that mean? You can walk with them saying a word. Tell them my phone is 24/7 available for you. I'll walk out on a boardroom if I see your phone call. You're never too much for me. Life is more important than my job. Just let them know you're there for them. Take dinner with them. The most important thing you can do to a depressed person is just to be there with them. It's not even what you say. Number 2, listen. Don't listen with the intention of replying. Often than not, we listen burning to reply. Listen to understand. Listen to empathize. Listen to hear what they are saying. Listen to hear what they are not saying. Listen to give them an opportunity to vent. And don't even dare tell them, I understand what you're feeling. You don't understand. Just listen. Try a small gesture. If you left a depressed girl at home, here's my suggestion for you. Write her a nice card. Leave some rose flowers behind. Don't wait for Christmas or Easter or Valentine to give her a card. If you let a man behind, a husband, a brother, a colleague, I want every woman to know, and those who will ever listen to this video recording, men too love being appreciated. Leave us a card behind, and we don't mind if it can be accompanied by a watch or a belt or a tie. Don't say that you don't know my size. Ties are the same size. Take them for a movie. Cook together. Take a walk together. Learn as much as you can about depression. Learn about the causes and the consequences and the effects and how to cure and how to handle it and the root causes, which I'll teach you in just a moment. You see, one mistake people who are healthy make about depressed people, when we see them laugh at our joke, we assume they have suddenly recovered. When we see them go through one good day, we imagine they have just recovered. Depression is not a static disorder. There is an ebb flow that is not fixed overnight. A child can still go to school, get an A, and they're still depressed. So it's time to learn as much as you can about depression. Number 5, be patient. One of the most difficult things about depression is just patience. Because the journey is not going to take a day or a week or a month. A depressed person hardly comes across any hope. And the mere fact that someone says, I'll stand with you, hope is very hard to come by. Just sending a signal that I care changes the entire math. Let me give you a few words to use and the ones not to use. What not to say. And I know as I talk like this, chances are over 50% of you, I will not ask you to lift up your hand, have had someone depressed in your home. And maybe this will help you check whether you have used some of these unkind words with them. What's wrong with you? I can see the guilty faces. Uko na shida gani? What's wrong with you? You'll die alone and leave us right here. Are these statements real? Why are you acting so helpless? Others say, so kiddish. Are you the only one with problems? Don't we too have the same issues? It's all in your head. If you want to die, it's up to you. And as you look like you could have used this word, save the grace of God. No, I'm just checking whether people are alert. Why do you make a big deal out of everything? Others will say, why do you make a big deal out of nothing? Look at the bright side of things. By the way, when you tell someone this, you are telling them depression is a choice. And you have chosen to be depressed. This is an insult. Shouldn't you be better by now? I mean, I've been with you here for the last 3 months. Why are you not recovering? I think we are going to take you to a recovery center. I can't do anything about your situation. When you act helpless to a helpless person, you've condemned them to death. And finally, you have so much to live for. Why do you want to die? Let me give you some suggestions of what you can say. I'll give you some 7 statements of what you can say and 3 statements on how you can initiate a conversation with someone who is suffering depression. Questions you can ask. When did you begin feeling like this? Now, when you throw such a question, they open up. They start talking with you. Did something happen that made you start feeling this way? You'll be surprised. They're likely to preempt what I'm going to teach you next about the root causes, just by throwing that question. How best can I support you right now? You are not alone in this. I am here for you and with you. I'll start with you throughout the journey. You are important to me. Your life is important to me. Your health is important to me. Your career is important to me. You mean so much to me. These words are very rare to a depressed person. They are harassed in the marketplace and at home. We tend to think they're pretending. That's why they're skipping job once in a while. That's why they can't come to work early. You may not believe it now, but the way you're feeling will change. I may not exactly understand how you feel, but I care about you and want to help. And this way you give them an opportunity to tell you how you can help. Now let me give you some 3 suggestions on how to start a conversation. I've been feeling concerned about you lately. Don't forget to throw the word lately, so that you don't behave like you're concerned about them their entire lifetime, like they're depressed their whole lifetime. The key word here in number 9 is recently, so that you don't make it too big, but you're not belittling it. Recently, I've noticed some differences in you and wondered how you're doing. This is a very direct question, but respectful. I wanted to check in with you because you seem pretty down lately. I want to go to lesson number 3, a critical lesson. I call it the root cause. Now, there are many causes of depression. I'm not going to get into hormonal causes. I'm going to get into root cause. You also realize I deliberately avoided speaking with you about types of depression. However, should a question arise during the Q&A, I'll respond to that. I'll only deal with four root causes of depression. And the first one is trauma. Something that may have happened in your childhood. For example, a girl may have been raped by a surrogate father, and she lost trust with men, and she turned to be a lesbian because she thinks the only person who understands my feelings is another woman. Trauma can come because of being diagnosed with a terminal illness or being childless and you've been married for so long. Trauma has nothing to do with you. I read of a case not so long ago, a real case, a couple that got married in church in the US. 7 years later, the husband decides to change his gender to become a woman. Now, if you're a woman and you wanted to marry a man, and the man decides to become a woman, and he goes to hospital for the doctors to do everything possible to change his anatomy, can that be traumatizing? But if you think it's traumatizing to you as a wife, what do you think about the children? About their father? The second cause of depression is rejection. If you knew you were an unwanted pregnancy, an uncle whispered to you, or your mother tipped it, and they let you know you were born when you are not expected, this is a rejection. And at this point, let me say this very clearly. There is no such a thing as an illegitimate child. I've even heard some people saying, yes, there are no illegitimate children, but they're illegitimate parents. For the avoidance of doubt, there is no such a thing as an illegitimate parent. You know, the royal kingdoms, like the British monarchy, they're the people who introduced these concepts to suggest a child who was not biologically born in this home should not become a king. Then we picked up that term without knowing the implications. I want to make it clear here tonight that every child arrives here on divine appointment. It is not by the will of a father or a mother. None of us can create a child. There's no such a thing as an accidental birth. Every child is born by the will of God. They are not illegitimate children. They are not illegitimate parents. They are only kids by divine appointment. That's why Scripture says, I knew you before I formed you, Jeremiah, Monica, Carol, Stephen. Put your name there. God knew you before you were formed. The psalmist has the audacity to say, you knew my inmost beings while I was still in my mother's womb. They were not hidden before your sight. Another rejection. Here is a man listening to me here tonight, and you buy your woman a red sport, a Mercedes S-Class 500. And the next moment, she moves out with your best friend. One of the highest forms of rejection is marital betrayal. A young man could have proposed to a girl, the love of her life, a girl he had a serious crush on, and he slapped on the face, and he decides to become gay. He can't start rejection again from a woman. I've met such cases. I've had a very interesting career. Every so often I have to find how to vent, lest I also bust because of the things I hear. So you can also blow up if you wear my shoes. In the last 1 month, if I tell you the number of things that people have written to me from all corners of this planet, from Japan to the US to Canada, unless I also come up with very clear ways of dealing with it, it will also mess me good. But rejection can come from different things. In a job situation, you are in acting capacity as a manager. You are doing exceptionally well. And they suddenly decide to outsource from outside, ignoring you, even though you're in acting capacity for over a year. It can be very disturbing, very distressing. Whenever you feel rejected, you raise a child who never recognizes you as a mother anymore. They don't even want to use your name. Rejection hurts. But there is a place where gays and lesbians and thieves and prisoners are accepted. I know of a place where every tear is wiped away. And tonight, we're going to call on that name of God. Failure. You know, we are a very interesting society. Most parents don't know how to handle a teen pregnancy. So a teenager has been made to understand if they get pregnant before they get married, they have failed. A woman spoke to me last month when I was talking about this topic of depression. I'll not disclose her name, and she told me, Doc, my mother told me if I get a child before I get married, she'll pull the two legs of the child before my sight. So what do you expect that girl to do when she gets pregnant? As a parent also, you can feel like you have failed because a child you raised so well has gotten into drugs, and you judge yourself harshly. Not just, many decisions are not necessarily yours. Kids too have their own personal decisions. You see, the most difficult enemy to deal is an enemy you love. How do you take your own child to prison? Because they're in drugs. How do you take your own spouse to prison? How difficult it is to deal with an enemy we love. Unfortunately, the people who stress us the most are the ones who are closest to us. Failure can come because your job is not working, your business is not working. Unfortunately, while women derive their self-esteem from who they love, men derive their self-esteem and their identity from what they do. If you want to mess a woman, mess her relationships. If you want to mess a man, mess his career or his business. Regrettably, when a man consistently fails in his career life, in his business, it can be very depressing. How unfortunate he lives with a woman who does not even understand him in the first place and can dare ask him, be a man like others. These are common statements that I receive from my clients. Without realizing you're condemning this man to hell. How insensitive are you? You are not better than Jezebel. We've got to learn how to deal with failure. We've got to accept our victories and also our lessons. We've got to accept our victories and also our failures. And I use failure here very positively to imply not everything you're going to plan will go per the script. That only happens in movies. And failure can come from different quarters. Even from marriage, from ministry, that you deeply respected. and your name is highly tarnished, and you don't know how to behave. But number 4, and perhaps the leading cause of depression, is fear. And fear comes in 3 dimensions. All fear on this planet has 3 dimensions only. The first dimension of fear is the past. The fear that what happened yesterday is going to recur. I failed an exam, I might fail again. I broke a relationship, I don't trust men anymore. I don't want to go for a date, lest they break my heart again. I started a business, it failed, I might fail again. You tried to reconcile with a parent and they didn't accept it, and now you're failing to approach them one more time. Fear of what happened yesterday will recur. The second dimension of fear is the present. Fear of whether I'm going to go through the current situations victoriously. How will I handle this mortgage? Will my property be auctioned? How will I handle this relationship right now? How will I make through the month? How will I handle the banker who is on my case? Construction is the first casualty when the economy begins to collapse. And maybe you have invested heavily in real estate. Neither renters or people buying homes are coming by. How will I go through this current sickness? God, if only I can get out of hospital. And the third dimension of fear is the future. Old age. Fear that you might divorce and your relationship is broken. And you might be the laughingstock. Fear that you may lose your job in days to come. That when you hear rumors of organizational restructuring, like redundancy, you're suspicious. If 10% will be picked, you'll be an obvious victim. Fear of what the future holds. Will I be able to pay this mortgage and complete paying my house? Will I be able to recover this illness? Fear of the future. I want to tell you this. We are the only creation that God created that does not trust him. Jesus said, behold the birds of the air. They never sow, they never reap. Behold the lilies of the field. Not even Solomon in the splendor of his majesty was clothed like these ones. Jesus picked deliberately the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom to say all creation trust God for sustenance except man. We are the only people who don't trust God for sustenance. I want to pull that scripture for you right now. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? What is Jesus saying here? Worrying is already unreasonable. There's nothing you can change about it. It's an illogical thing. But look at the next verse, number 28. And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today, and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith? The psalmist repeated the same thing. The last few days we've been going through the book of Psalms with my kids. We came across this scripture. Let me show you. The eyes of all look to you, and you give them their food at the proper time. You open your heart and satisfy the desires of every living thing. What a shame. Only you and me do not trust God for sustenance. But God has not given us the spirit of fear, but that of love, power, and of a sound mind. I want us to read this together. All of us. Let's read together. For God, want to go? Has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. Not a depressed mind. And this takes me to my final lesson tonight. Dealing depression. I want to discuss with you some 14 ways to deal depression. I want to be real and practical by suggesting the first way is to go to the doctor. So if you're on medication, I repeat again, continue with your medication. What you need to understand, antidepressants are like painkillers, and it's okay to take painkillers as you look for the real treatment. It's okay to minimize your pain. There is no shame in taking antidepressants. That said, please understand, you will never permanently recover from depression by taking antidepressants. I've given a lot of thought to this subject. I've reluctantly implemented what I'm doing tonight. I've been requested by people over the years to do this topic. I've given deep thought about what I'm saying, and I'm aware about the controversies this may raise. So let me repeat for the avoidance of doubt, in case you thought this was a slip of the tongue. You will never permanently recover from depression by taking antidepressants. Come to terms with that. You never got depressed by taking pills. You'll never get out of depression by taking pills. It's just like obesity and weight. You never got weight by taking pills. You will never recover from obesity and overweight permanently by taking pills. Number 2, psychotherapy. And that's why primarily I asked Beatrice Maggie to be with me here tonight, because there's a treatment they give people, we call it CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. They study your behaviors and your habits and try to see whether there is some disorderly thinking that will be causing unnecessary anxiety. I received a lot of emails from different Kenyans who wants to help me in this, and I know most of them are genuine. But the reason I want to work with Beatrice is because I know her. I'm not a psychiatrist. And sometimes you need someone to help you go through this process. Number 3, 4, 5, and 6, look at me for a while. Stop looking at the screen. I want to tell you this. There's a solution within you which I want to propose, which is hormonal. And I want to tell you some 4 hormones, which I call today some feel-good hormones. The first feel-good hormone that you have is called endorphin. Endorphin is activated in your blood system when you exercise, or you do some stretches, or you just laugh. You just watch just for laughs. I'm not talking of movies. Just for laughs. If you get a chance to laugh hysterically, that is music to your soul. You either create time for exercise and laughter or create time for antidepressants. If you have no way to laugh, ask someone to tickle you. Go to Alliance Française. But look for an opportunity just to laugh. If you have no opportunity, be joining me to be showing you just for laugh some of the best. They will get you to laughter. The second hormone that can deal with depression is called dopamine. Dopamine. Now, dopamine is released in your blood system when you're appreciated. Now, you have to do something for you to be appreciated. For example, if you're in sales, make sure you become the national sales leading person in the year. As they recognize you, as they put you in the newspapers. The other day, I was going to speak to university students in Kenya, and I saw my billboard. I think they have not removed it yet on Mombasa Road. Allow me to confess one of my little secrets. I felt very good. Can I just be honest? You feel like, I think I'm making a statement. Do you ever feel such a thing? You also feel when you go through graduation or through a wedding. But if you do not have some of these major milestones, I want to give you a very simple way of being appreciated. Just dress sharp. Take care of your nails and your hair. Come on. Look good. You'll force everyone to tell you, you are looking good. And it releases dopamine. Wacha kukaa kiherehere. You know the funny thing with people who are depressed, they wear dull colors. If you realize you're stressed, I advise you today, look for extremely bright colors 3 times a week. Do a hairstyle you have never done before. For someone just to say, you look different. Today I found my master very different. When she came to Lillian Towers, I didn't know this was my wife. To be honest, you know they go to the salon and they change. 15 years, 9 months, I was getting shocked. Because she looked different. She's ever smart, but today she looked very different. And she wanted me not to tell her to start. My God. For the purposes of later. Hormone number 3. Can we go to number 3? And it is called serotonin. Serotonin. So why should I give you such hard terms? Because you guys are wronged. I know you people. Serotonin. You release serotonin when you do something to people who can never repay you. When you visit, did you know a lot of prisoners are there innocently? When you visit the prisoner, you visit the elderly, orphans, street children. Don't confuse what I have just said with CSR. Corporate social responsibilities have a string attached. It is about your personal and corporate branding. I'm saying planting a tree whose shade may never shelter you. Doing something to people who may never recognize you. Number 4, and the last hormone, oxytocin. Now, you release oxytocin, one for those who are married. When you make love intimately, you release oxytocin. For the singles in our midst, when you hug someone intimately, you release oxytocin. Even when you hug your own child, I would have wanted to demonstrate, but the best person to demonstrate how to hug is Dennis. So Dennis, come over here. The reason I want to show you how not to hug and how to hug. Now, Dennis, come here. Stand here. I have a friend of mine. A friend we share with Erastus. And this is how he hugs people. You have not met for 5 years. Oh, Dennis. Hi, Dennis. That's how he hugs people. If you hug like that, you cannot release oxytocin. So show us how to hug. Show us how to hug. I'm serious, by the way.
I can go ahead.
Yes. Show us how to hug. Exactly. I mean exactly that. And by the way, before you sit, you too, there's some people who are so sensitive. Just let me hold my Ivy. Just holding her heart like this and a small peck like this. Oxytocin is released the whole body. The whole body. It is called touch therapy. Look at the neighbor on your right and on your left and tell them, touch me, baby, touch me, baby. You can sit, you can sit. I hug my daughter no less than 20 times every day. Every single day. And let me tell you this, there are parents who never ever get a chance to touch their children. And you're denying them something. And the moment you build that, over the years, that child becomes secure. When you go home and your husband never touches you, go tell him tonight, touch me, baby. Touch me, baby. Let's go to number 7. Associate with positive people. Associate with positive people. That means avoid people who consistently stress you. It is true there are some people who stress you. You don't have to always be on their path. Avoid people who are vampires sucking blood out of your life. And associate with people who build your faith up. People who build up. You know, emotions are contagious. Look for people with positive energy. Number 8, think positively. Be careful with your thoughts. Do not expose yourself to negative material. The same way you don't watch pornography because you know it's going to corrupt your morals. Stop watching violent movies and baptizing them action movies. You are eventually a product of what you expose yourself to. If you consistently watch episodes of depressed people, you'll eventually be depressed. Beatles will tell you this. In psychotherapy, they are also careful not to always associate day in, day out with depressed people because eventually you end up becoming depressed. There is a character who went to the library and looked at the librarian and said, "Sir, do you have a book on how to commit suicide?" The librarian told him, "Get out of here. You won't bring it back." Let me tell you what you should be thinking about. Look at this. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is, whatever is, whatever is, whatever is, whatever is, whatever is, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. How amazing that God would even prescribe our thought system. Because we are a product of what we keep thinking. Yes, you can't keep reading books on suicide and return the book to the library. That's true. Number 9, speak positively. Now, listen to this very carefully. I think I want to release some revelation right here. Because there's not a single word you speak that is neutral. Words have the power to make and the power to destroy. Here is the deal. Every positive word you speak activates the angelic realm into action. Every positive word you speak commissions heaven into action. Every negative word you speak activates the dark, demonic world into action. That's why when somebody says, "I will commit suicide," there's a demon assigned to do a thorough follow-up on that assignment. Is this biblical? Let me try to prove to you. Now, an army general came to Christ, just to give you one of them. I could have given you many examples. Follow me if you can. My servant is unwell. I believe he was talking about one of the soldiers. Now, Jesus knew something basic. Give honor to those whom honor is due. And he said, "I will come to your house tonight." The army general said, "You don't need to do that. I'm the chief of general staff. When I give an order, bullets are fired in the battleground. Once I release a word, things happen at the battlefront. Jesus, I know who you are. Just say the word. Just say the word. And sickness will leave. And demons will flee. You don't need to travel to my house. Just say the word. The Bible says life and death is in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruits thereof. Life and death. Every word you speak is either life or death. No wonder Jesus said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So watch this. Is it possible to feel stressed and disturbed in your head? Yes, and it is still not sinful. You see, Jesus said, whosoever shall say to this mountain, be removed from here and planted over there, and does not doubt in his heart. Jesus never said, does not doubt in his mind. You are human, and you're likely to doubt in your head. But when you speak it, you transfer it from your head to your heart. Before you speak it, it's still in your head. Once you verbalize your fears and your anxieties, you have now transferred from your head to your heart. The devil doesn't know your thoughts. He gets cues when you speak. He's not omniscient. There are three prerogatives of our God. He's the omnipotent God. He's the all-knowing God, omniscient God. He's the omnipresent God, ever present. The devil, you give him too much credit. He can't read your mind. He gets clues when you speak. And when it's a negative word you speak, you know what? You are God. Psalms 82 verse 6. Every word you speak has another dimension in higher worlds. You are either asking heaven to back your statement or hell to back your statement. Never utter a negative word with your mouth. Train your tongue. It's not going to come easy. Learning a new language does not happen overnight, but learn to speak positively. If God does not lie, and this is his language, let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich. Let the weak say, I'm strong. Let the sick say, I'm healed. God calls things that are not as though they are. If God can tell a weak person to say, I'm strong, and God does not lie, why wouldn't you speak God's language when you're broke and say, I am getting a financial breakthrough? That's God's language. Speak positively. Do not ever admit you're depressed by confessing it. If you go to a psychotherapy or a doctor or wherever you go, explain your signs, but don't confess the word depressed. This is the line between my job as a minister of the gospel with a doctor. Because the eternal truth will set you free. Embrace quiet times. Learn to meditate. And this is not social withdrawal. By quiet times, I exactly mean that. Giving your mind a chance to rest. You're not on overdrive. Many times you're on autopilot. And there are many ways in which you can have quiet moments to connect with your inner self, because the quieter you are, the louder you hear. But the best way you can do it is a walk in the park. Nature has a way of reducing cortisol. What's that? Cortisol is a stress hormone. Stress hormone, we call it cortisol. And the mere fact that you take a walk in the park has a way of reducing cortisol in your blood system. Number 11, journal your feelings. I'm saying this because sometimes we are too weak to share with someone else what we are going through. If you don't feel like you can trust the world and the society and the people around you, I suggest tonight, get onto your laptop. Write everything you feel, your entire experience, write it down. By doing so, unconsciously, you begin to vent. It's as though you're speaking to someone else. Journal your feelings to give you a chance to vent. Number 12. Live responsibly. While it is true, we are not necessarily the people who cause depression. Some of the issues that come to us are self-induced. For example, if you don't take care of your targets at work, you are definitely asking your supervisor to take disciplinary measures. And stress is the next item on the ladder. Take care of your job. Take care of your business. Avoid being a busybody. Matters your relationship. Let me throw a word to the married and a word to the singles. For those who are married, realize this. Every time you get involved in multiple relationships, you are setting yourself up for depression. Every mpago or kado will also want a house, and a car, and a child. It doesn't matter whether you can afford those things or not. Even if you have the money to afford, while you're still in your house, you'll be wondering, ni dume gani iko kwangu kule ninalipa apartment. It's just a fact of life. Every extramarital affairs is a doorway to depression. For the singles, and let me start with the girls, and then I can talk to the men. If you're a single lady listening to me here today, one of the greatest dilemmas, at what point do I realize a man is serious for marriage or he just wants sex to take me to bed? At what point do I realize that? Because all men, all normal men, whether he's looking for sex or for marriage, they say the same things. The only way to get married to you or to take you to bed is to make you believe you have the fairest skin on the face of the earth. You have the best braids or the most focused girl. It is to make you believe your shape is like that of Eve, directly baked by the hands of God. His fingers, he did not pass through your parents. When I look at your eyes, I just melt in your presence, you know. Every man here knows the truth. That's the only way a whole engineer won the girl he married, including pastors. So as a single lady, how do you know whether this guy is serious or he's misusing you? This is a simple litmus test. I will repeat it. I will drill it into your mind. If you believe it, you are saved. If you don't, you'll pay the price for depression. Do not get engaged in premarital sex until you get married. If a man is dead serious with you, he will wait for you. Simple. Otherwise, you expose yourself to the same vicious cycle. You will be hurt again. This is the truth. Men know the difference between call girls and wife material. And the moment he realizes you cannot encourage sex that is outside covenant, then they take you to be serious because you respect yourself. Ironically, most women sleep with men because they want to hook them. They don't want to lose them. It's such an irony because that's the time you lose them. Especially when you feel years are passing by. You're about to turn 40. You feel the clock is ticking and no one is coming through your way. That's the time you make blunders and you're stressed by your relationships all the more. For the men in our midst, I have a word for you. If you're going to win that girl by flashing a car, showing her property, you're going to sustain her through the same things. It is time you learn, do not relate with things that you can lose. You can lose your money, you can lose your job, you can lose your business, you can lose your house, you can even lose your spouse. Don't derive your identity from that which you can lose. As a man, if you sleep with that woman, even if you get married, realize you have already mentored her into uncovenanted sex. And they will still move out and you are the mentor. You show them it was all right to get involved into casual sex. You made it clear to them by what you did. It is in your interest. Why does this simple logic escape us? Why are we such victims of the enemy? Before we are married, Satan tempts us into premarital sex. Once we get married, he tempts us outside sex. Who has bewitched us as humanity? Don't you realize I speak with authority here because I've chosen to live with each one of you purely. If I compromise with any of you, I'll never speak the way I speak here again. Don't you realize you're stressing yourself? The moment you just mix up yourself with the relationship. If you're going to marry this woman for life, and you're planning to be with her for the next 50, 60 years, why are you rushing the next 6 months when you're dating? Where is common sense at this time and age? If you thought this is about eternity, this is about you here. You will still go to heaven after committing murder and adultery. The grace of God cannot be exhausted. So long as you confess, there's only one sin God doesn't forgive, the unconfessed sin. There's only one prayer God doesn't answer, the unprayed prayer. But you'll pay the price right here. You get to the club, your teeth are knocked, you come to Christ, we will embrace you and hug you, and you will remain toothless. Let's go to number 13. Invest in personal development. You see, personal development is not for losers, it's for winners. The cup of knowledge for wise people never fail. I'm saying this because there are a lot of people who think personal development should be for people who are not doing well in their career lives. Personal development is for people who are winners. Now, let me share one or two thoughts why you need personal development. For instance, you learn when you come here, and I've said it a million times, you're either in trouble or headed for trouble, or you have just emerged out of trouble. Job says, few are the days of a man born of a woman, and they're full of trouble. This is just the reality. And I can't describe it any better than John Milton, who wrote in Paradise Lost about our broken world. Ours is a broken world, broken relationships, dysfunctional families, broken marriages, broken economies, broken climate. That's why Jesus in the Lord's Prayer taught us, thy will be done on earth as it is done in heaven. For lack of a better word, heaven is a planet, because they couldn't get a better analogy, just like the earth. How do I know? Jesus said, in my Father's house are many mansions. You don't build mansions in the air. But the Lord said very clearly, God's will is perfectly executed in heaven. And that's the prayer he has told you to pray, that that same will may be done here. Because here, anything but God's will takes place. I want to suggest to you today, no matter the victories you're going through, life will never give you a 100% victory. You still have issues to deal with, even on your graduation day, even on your wedding day. And no matter the trouble you're going through, you still have something to thank God for. It is never a 100% misery. Count your blessings one by one. Begin to name them. I like naming them, calling them by their names. You see, personal development helps you to go through life victoriously. Often than not, God doesn't change our situations. He changes us. He changes our mind. I don't know whether there's a better example than that of Dr. Viktor Frankl. Definitely you've heard me quote this in years past. And maybe you don't know why. Maybe I should give you the context. In the Holocaust, he witnessed his own father, mother, brother, and pregnant wife killed by the armies of Adolf Hitler. There are a couple of people who managed to escape the Nazi camps, and he was one of them. And graciously, he was able to live all the way to 92 years of age. He wrote several books, one of which, the most popular, sold over 10 million copies, Man's Search for Meaning. I think the best quote I could give you tonight from that book, anything can be taken away from a man except the lust of human freedom. Your right to choose your attitude in any set of circumstances. Now, if you can make such a statement after witnessing your entire family perish before your very eyes brutally, then this is a man who was deliberate with personal growth and development. What does this do to us? For instance, if you've been coming to our classes, you know we keep insisting, don't compete with others. How strange it is that the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not covet somebody's car. Thou shalt not covet somebody's wife, somebody's husband. Thou shalt not covet somebody's smartphone. You know, a lot of our stresses are self-induced. Men in particular are very competitive by nature. And I encourage you to compete against your previous self, not against others. God never designed us to move at the same pace. He never designed us to speak the same way. He never designed us to pursue the same career. But if you can continuously outdo yourself, then we are talking. Competing with others will leave you frustrated and stressed. Personal development will teach you to be content. I'm not talking about lack of ambition here, but avoiding coveting. You learn to be content. It's not a natural trait. Paul says, I have learned to be content in all things. He adds, contentment with godliness is a great gain. I live with number 14, and perhaps for me, the most important way of dealing depression. Number 14, the last one, pray. You see, Jesus prayed for us. How more should we pray for ourselves? And he was clear in his prayers. Can you imagine the Lord had the audacity to say, in this world, you will have many troubles. In some versions, you will have many tribulations. But I've prayed for you. But I've not prayed for you to be removed from the world, but that you may overcome the world. I suggest tonight, there is a peace that transcends our circumstances. There is a peace that transcends human understanding. Explain to me, precious friends, brothers and sisters, visitors present, how could the Apostle Paul sleep soundly when he was headed for the hangman noose the following morning? Even if you are not to be killed, how can you sleep comfortably, even if you are to go through, quote unquote, no more death the following morning? How do you afford to sleep so tight that an angel has to hit you at the side to wake you up? I think there is a peace that transcends all human understanding. If God can give peace to someone scheduled for the hangman noose, God can give peace to someone with big bank loans, broken relationships, broken family, bereaved person listening to me here who has lost a whole family. If God can give Peter peace. But I know this, there are times you're not too strong to pray for yourself. That particular night, the church was praying for Peter. The Apostle Paul writes to the Philippians from the jail, rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say, rejoice. I think there is a peace that transcends understanding. How do you write such words from prison? And then he sent another letter to the Corinthians and said, we are crushed on every side, but not destroyed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. I think there is a peace that transcends understanding. The Ten Boom family was a Dutch Christian family that was saving a lot of Jews from the Holocaust, and they used to hide them in their house. Until one night, an informant tipped the Nazis, and they captured the entire family. Corrie found herself with her sister in a Nazi concentration camp. The entire family perished. Miraculously, details for another day, she was able to escape the Nazi camps. And she lived up to her 91st birthday. In fact, according to Jewish custom, to celebrate your birthday and your death day the same day is an indication of a very special individual, and that happened to Corrie. She wrote several books. I want to pull one quote from her book, The Hiding Place, that ministers to my heart very deeply. She wrote, and I quote, after looking at the family lost in Holocaust, in that context, this is what she says. If you look to the world, you will be distressed. If you look within, you will be depressed. If you look up to Christ, you will be at rest. Elsewhere, she writes, you will never know that Christ is all you need until Christ is all that you have. Life is made of seasons. And I have a mango tree here, just to illustrate that. There are no times you go through bright days alone. But I'm here to let you know, the darker the night, the brighter the stars. Sometimes the darker the night, the clearer we hear the Lord, and the clearer we see the Lord. Sometimes the Lord allows us to go through misty seasons to arrest our attention. Because he has drawn warning signs we can't see, then he has to bring some stop signs to arrest our attention from this busy life. By the way, you may not believe what I'm going to tell you. I don't believe the idea of 24 economy is God's idea. That's personal. It looks like a civilized way of running a 24-hour economy. It's happening in many countries in the world. But I believe that the Lord created the night for our rest. I believe we have been occupied to lose touch with our eternal values. Again, that's my personal opinion. But here's my message. Sometimes the darker the night, the clearer we see the Lord. I'm going to close by giving you the words, the last words of someone. And I think the last word of someone is very serious. I don't know whether there's anyone in our midst, don't lift up your hand, who listened to the last words of the father or the mother when they were leaving you. The last words of someone are very serious words. And tonight I want to draw your attention to the last words of Jesus before he physically left us. He said that I quote, I will never leave you, nor forsake you to the end of the world. For long I used to think this was a repetitive term in grammatical language for emphasis, until I crisscrossed with the original translation And I realized this was not repetition. Though that phrase, I'll never leave you, nor forsake you, in the original translation means, I will never leave you, nor emotionally abandon you. Think of Jesus saying, I will never leave you, nor abandon you emotionally. At Gethsemane, he was sweating blood for your emotional healing. He carried your stress and your depression, nullified them on that old rugged cross so that you may walk with a sound mind.